I have allowed the hello, sir.
Hello.
I have hello. I have allowed the
Hello.
viewers to join. You can
Okay.
start now, sir.
Okay. Nidhi, who is going to start?
So I'll start, sir. So Harsh, can you stop sharing your window, please? So are we ready?
Let us close the screen first.
So are we getting a countdown, sir?
Support team, are we ready now?
Yes, sir. We are ready now.
We can
Nidhi, go
start
ahead.
now. Go ahead, Nidhi.
Okay, sir.
I'm not able to cancel it.
It is already done, Harsh, don't worry.
Good evening to all. So I'll share my screen first. Good evening. I, Dr. Nidhi Singh, welcome you all on the behalf of our iHERA team. As we know a saying which says knowledge is power and sharing knowledge is the key of unlocking that power. And keeping this thought in mind, we have come together in a meeting where we gather to discuss and evaluate the recent research articles. And it's my great honor to announce our first journal club, which we have taken an article of Sandeep sir, where we are discussing, does physiological intracytoplasmic sperm injection improve outcome in men with abnormal semen parameters, a retrospective cohort study. So I hand over to my co-convener, Yoshita.
Thank you, Nidhi. Good evening, all. It is our honor to be a part of this journal club. I would like to call our co-convener, Dr. Nidhi Singh, Medical Director, Tejasvi Women Wellness and Maternity Center. I, Yoshita, Clinical Embryologist at Oasis Fertility Center. Miss Nancy Sharma, Senior Consultant Embryology, Department of Reproductive Medicine, Jindal IVF and Sons Memorial Nursing Home. And Dr. B. Ananta Lakshmi, Consultant and Senior Clinical Embryologist, Janani Trichy Fertility Center. So now I'll introduce our founders and co-founders of our iHERA, Dr. Ved Prakash sir, Dr. Sanjay Shukla sir, and Dr. Charudhar Joshi sir. I request Dr. Ved Prakash sir to say some few words about our journal club.
Thank you, Yoshita. I think you can hear me. Sorry for my voice, not feeling well. So, on behalf of iHERA, I welcome all of you. This is our first journal club, and I think it is our privilege to start iHERA Journal Club with our Indian authors like Colonel Sandeep Karnakunan and his co-convener Dr. Anup Ananda Saurup Bose. So both are very well-known person in the field, and with starting this journal club, our aim to share the knowledge and discuss all the paper, what research is going on in our field, and with all our participants, we want active participation from all of you. Just come with us and discuss these new things, and uh, with this discussion, we can come out with some good conclusion, and we can use in our practical as lab. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I welcome Dr. Sanket Dhumal Satya, sir, Senior Consultant Embryologist, Hegde Fertility, Hyderabad, and Miss Nancy Sharma, Senior Consultant Embryologist at Jindal IVF. I request Nancy and Sanket sir to say some few words about this journal.
Yeah, thanks so much, Yoshita, for the kind introduction. And yeah, after a long day, I think we all gathered here to discuss about an article. This is our first ever journal club. I think iHERA started like 4 years back. We started with regular webinars. Then we jumped into online symposiums, workshops. Then we published research articles. Then we started Gamete Alert. now we started physical meeting also this year in Delhi, and now we are here to we're starting a journal club. It's a proud moment for us, and to begin with the Indian authors like Sandeep sir and the other team, it's our privilege. And having said that, yeah, today's topic is about PXC. How important is this physiological ICSI, and how does it affect the outcomes is what we're going to discuss. And we have a wonderful paper here, which is published recently this year, a couple of months ago. And yes, looking forward to it.
So I just want to say a few things about the journal in which it is published. So we are very thrilled that this is the first iHERA Journal Club, and it is featuring an article from the latest issue of Journal of Human Reproductive Sciences, which is JHRS, and it publishes quarterly. And the paper we are going to discuss today is published in July and September 2014, volume 17 and issue 3. We hope that this discussion will serve an authoritative resource for the ART professionals and advances the readers and the journal club attendees. So without further ado, I think we should.
Yeah, just a small note here. I think the flow of the today's journal club will be, we have Harsh Jain with us, who is presenters for today, he'll be presenting about the paper today. Once it is done, then we have authors and experts from the very paper, and we have moderator with us, Pratik, so we'll be moderating the entire session. And meanwhile, along with Pratik, myself and Nancy also will be there to join for the discussion. Yeah, stage is all yours.
Dr. Singh?
You want to introduce?
Yeah, I welcome Dr. Pratik Makhwana to moderate the Journal Club presentation. He is a director at Vasundhara IVF, consultant, embryologist, healthcare educator, and content creator. And we are glad to have our expert and author of this Journal Club with us, Dr. Sandeep Karunakaran. He is a reproductive medicine specialist and embryologist, senior consultant at Apollo Fertility Center, Hyderabad, and Anand Swaroop Bose. He is a clinical embryologist and lab manager at Medicover Fertility Clinics. Welcome, sir. Now I would like to call our presenter of this first journal club, Mr. Harsh Jain, junior embryologist, Man Hospital, Bhopal.
Yes, small note here is like iHERA runs a very active chat group in WhatsApp, and so Harsh just picked up from there. Is a volunteer. He himself volunteered to present this paper. Yeah, Harsh, please go ahead.
Harsh, please share your screen first.
Also, I'd like to add a small note that it's very good that we are all starting with our own clubs like this, because I've participated in JCs with iHERA, and I think with iHERA now starting their own, I think it'll be a very, very good step in the right direction for academics in India.
Thank you, sir. And Harsh, can you start with your presentation?
A hearty good evening to one and all present here, all the dignitaries. I'm Harsh Jain, and I'm going to present this paper which was published on Journal of Human Reproductive Sciences. Does PXC improve outcome in men with abnormal semen parameters, which is a retrospective cohort study. The first authors of this paper are Swati Shivare ma'am and Sandeep Karunakaran sir. So as we all know that infertility cases are increasing day by day, and 50% of all those cases are contributed by male factor infertility, which is really a great finding and great prevalence in when it comes to the infertility in men. So the previous studies about PXC and ICSI have shown that PXC has PXC has improved fertilization, adjusted vacillation rate, and good quality for embryo formation has also taken place. Then the current aim, the aim of this current study is to compare the adjusted vacillation rate, which is the primary objective of this study, and comparison of fertilization, cleavage, clinical pregnancy, and miscarriage rate was the secondary objective of this study when placed into the two groups, PXC and conventional ICSI. Now let me come with the materials and methods. So this was a retrospective cohort study, as I have mentioned. which was done on the duration of 9 months in a tertiary assisted reproductive center. Every study has inclusion and exclusion criteria. So the cases with fresh semen with abnormal parameters like count, motility, and morphology, non-donor gametes, fresh oocytes, and with controlled ovarian stimulation were taken in the inclusion criteria of this study. On the other hand, cryptozoospermia, globozoospermia, grossly abnormal oocytes, factors like fibroids, adenomyosis, endometriosis, and poor ovarian reserve with poor AMH, and the sperms which were surgically retrieved, such cases were excluded from this study. About the study population, initially 396 ART cycles were screened, out of which 104 cycles fall into the inclusion criteria. And out of those 104 cycles, 51 of them were placed in the PIXI group, whereas 53 of them were placed in the conventional ICSI group. So this is the primary outcome as adjusted blastulation rate. So the researchers use this formula to find the primary outcome, and the day 3 embryos were either transferred or frozen and were excluded from the study. These are the secondary outcomes of this study: fertilization rate, good quality embryo, clinical pregnancy, and miscarriages. All these rates were, the results were obtained as per the Vienna consensus, and researchers use these formulas while obtaining the results. So post collection of the semen washing happened by following these two processes, either density gradient or swim up technique, whichever was suitable for independent ART cycle in the case of male. So after the semen washing was done, simultaneously oocytes were also processed. M2 oocytes were taken, and after the pickup was happened, oocytes were denudated, and the right sperm was selected, which was morphologically and with a good motility was selected to perform the PIXI and ICSI procedures in both the groups. So after the injection of sperm inside the oocyte cytoplasm happened, embryo culture, fertilization, cleavage, adjusted blastulation, and embryo transfer was assessed. The fresh embryo transfer was done on day 3 or day 5, and as this study only includes blastocyst rate, it is worth mentioning here that during the entire process of this research, the company of media was not changed, and all the procedures were followed during the standard. All the procedures were followed according to the standard protocol of ART guidelines. So after the transfer was done into the patient's uterus, after the 2 weeks of transfer, beta HCG test was done to confirm the pregnancy, and a clinical pregnancy was confirmed by USG procedure, which showed the gestational sac of 2 weeks after the beta HCG test was done. So let me come to the results part of this study. So this is the demographic profile of which was published in the paper. We can clearly see that this profile indicates that there is no difference between the two groups, that is PIXI and conventional ICSI. These are the embryological outcomes of the study. Out of the 51, the embryo transfer was done in two processes, either the fresh embryo transfer or the frozen embryo transfer. So in the case of fresh embryo transfer, 7 out of 51 cases were done in PIXI as a fresh embryo transfer, and 44 out of 51 were done as a frozen embryo. Whereas in the case of conventional ICSI, 11 out of 54 cycles were done as a fresh embryo transfer, and 43 out of 54 cycles were done as a frozen embryo transfer. Adjusted blastulation rate tells about that PIXI showed 43.7%, whereas conventional ICSI was 34.2%, with p-value 0.022. The adjusted incident rate ratio of blastocysts was the PIXI produced 42% more blastocytes at confidence interval at 95%, with p-value 0.042. These are the pregnancy and miscarriages rate. In the PIXI showed 37.2% of pregnancy, whereas ICSI showed 32% of pregnancy rates, whereas it was 5.3% miscarriage rate in the case of PIXI and 11.7% in the case of conventional ICSI, with p-value 0.005. The pregnancy rates in fresh embryo transfer was 28.5%, and 27.2% in conventional ICSI in the fresh embryo transfer scene. And in the scenario of frozen embryo transfer, it was 38.6% in PIXI and 33.2% in conventional ICSI. This is a very important key finding, that there was no significant difference between the PIXI and conventional ICSI group when it came to fertilization and cleavage rates. But the adjusted bracillation rate was higher in the PIXI group, which is really very insightful. This table corresponding data is shown in this table. So this table tells us about the crude iHERA rate and adjusted iHERA rate. We can clearly see that the crude iHERA rate doesn't show any significant results. But when these clinical factors were adjusted, they showed a significant results and comparison between both the group, that is PIXI and ICSI. As the results showed, that PIXI showed higher results when it came to the adjusted blastulation rate. So every study has its own limitations. This study is a retrospective cohort study with a small sample size, and lack of randomization is there. And live birth rate, DNA fragmentation index were not included in this study, since it was a patient's money and only the relevant things were included. I would conclude with that despite limitations, these study findings align with the existing literature, showing that miscarriages rate and increase implantation rates with PIXI. So the miscarriages rates are reduced and implantation rates are increased in PIXI. So PIXI is a promising tool in the male factor infertility. We have clearly seen from this research article that it has proved that it increases the adjusted blastulation rate, implantation rate, and it is also associated with reduction in the miscarriage rate. And overall, it denotes that it may increase the chances of successful IVF cycles or ART cycles, ICSI cycles. So these are the references of the research paper. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Harsh. You covered it nicely. It was your first time doing it, and I think you were pretty good at it. So I think all of us have gone through the article. All of us have heard the Harsh talk about it. I have a slight question that I want to start off with, and then I think I will also ask Sanket and Nancy to help me understand and get more insights in the paper with the authors over here. So what's the primary outcome, considering that it's blastulation rate?
Sorry to interrupt. Harsh, please close your screen. Stop sharing your screen.
Okay, are we good to go?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay.
Actually,
Let me just complete it. What's the primary outcome? And since it's a retrospective study, why not go and look at the live birth rate as well? Since you can have the timeline for yourself, you can follow up with the patients. And at this point in a retrospective study, I think having a more outcome which is more useful to say add value to the technique in general would be a much better addition. So how did we arrive at a primary outcome measure as the blastulation rate?
good to go. Okay, I'll take the first part first. I mean, why we chose not exactly the blastulation rate, but an adjusted blastulation rate is to keep the study in tune with the practicality of a day-to-day practice. Invariably, not all centers do day 3 or day 5 transfers specifically. We were a center which we would assess at day 3, depending on the patient criteria, the clinician's choice, as well as the patient's wishes. We used to assess on day 3 if there was good amount of cleavage and good healthy embryos, and we thought we could spare a few to go on to the blast, then possibly we would let it go to the blast. Otherwise, we would freeze or transfer on day 3 itself. So what this does is give a more practical solution to, or a practical way to answer the correct blastulation rate. Otherwise, if you go by the Vienna consensus, they wouldn't actually factor in the day 3 assessment at all. So we have tried to factor in. I know it won't be perfect. There will be a limitation in all these things, because nothing will be perfect, and you can't actually, there is so much of human element which is present, when it comes to choice, you might have a previous failure on day 5, so you would want to do a day 3 transfer. But if you logically think about it, if you see the cleavage rate plus the adjusted blastulation rate, possibly when you combine those two formulae, we might end up with a approximate total amount of good embryos that we can, good transferable embryos that we can actually harvest from the procedure. Second part of the question, when we started writing the article, it was somewhere in the month of May. So live birth rate couldn't be factored in because we had stopped the study in December. Moreover, we had a lot of foreign patients whom actually they would come with an Indian SIM card to our center, and when they go back, it was slightly difficult to follow up, and hence the live birth. Whatever we could manage, we have actually incorporated into the study.
Thank you so much. Also, one small addition to it. So, when you say that you have factored in the day 3 transfers and the blastocyst as well, is there a point in study where we have mentioned it that which transfer was a day 3 and which transfer was a blastocyst, that we can differentiate between the success results?
Yeah, we have.
And
actually excluded the day 3 frozen oblique transferred from the denominator of the adjusted blastulation.
Okay. Okay, do you have a question?
Yeah, right. To start with, like, I think if Ananda explains the protocol, how different it is from that of the conventional ICSI. I mean, I think just for the benefit of the younger audience, I think that would be great. You have to unmute yourself, Ananda.
Am I audible right now?
Yes, good to go.
Okay. So firstly, I would like to thank all of you. So the difference in PIXI and ICSI is the preparation and the sperm selection is the main difference. Preparation of the dish is very important because in this PIXI dish, what we get from Cooper Surgical, I think only Cooper Surgical provides the PIXI dish right now. So there is 3 small, it's not a well, it's the area, small area. It is located in the lower section of the plate. So there, the film of hyaluronan is there in that area, small area. So we have to hydrate the part, hyaluronan part, and then we have to start. So the preparation, whatever the way you want to do ICSI is separate. You have to make in the central zone of the dish, and this hyaluronan part you have to give the HEPIS media or any MOPS media, whatever non-CO2 media you're using. You can make 5 microliter drops. You have to just hydrate the drops, and you have to keep minimum of 5 to 10 minutes before doing the actual work, before giving the sperm sample in it. So after adding the sperm, again the incubation is needed for at least 15 minutes, and in some case it's 30 minutes. You can wait up till 30 minutes to get the sperm. So yes. So when you see inside the microscope, you will see the sperm head is, I think sir is
I think
Continue speaking.
Yeah.
okay. So you can see the sperm head is sticking on the hyaluronan film, and the tail will be moving like a helicopter. That is the best way to identify the sperm that is adhered. So we will collect those sperm which is sticking there, and then we will take that sperm to the PVP. Then we will crush the tail, then we will inject. The injection procedure and the crushing of the tail procedure is the same of normal, and only the difference is to choose the sperm. What I do, I take the adhered sperm and further, I find the morphologically best sperm possible. So the morphological selection is also there. In some cases where you don't find any morphologically good sperm, then you have to go only by the adhered sperm possible.
So that could be
Whichever is sticking.
that probably the sperms which are added would be of good quality. Even
Yes,
though
yes, yes.
possibly not good in terms of WHO criteria,
Exactly.
but at least they're fitting into the category where their zona binding capacity is true on over there.
Exactly. That is the main principle of the PIXI.
Yeah. So thanks, Ananda, for that. And yeah, my
Thank you.
next question is for yes. Sorry.
I have a question.
Yeah, Pratik.
So when you're doing PIXI, why? What's the basis for selecting the sperm based on morphology? Because the same principle was implied by IMC for using morphology. And the rationale for PIXI was that irrespective of the morphology, as long as the DNA is
Yes.
integrated, you will pick that sperm. So, and you have mentioned here that you were still looking at morphology.
No, what he
So
actually, I
what?
thought he wanted to say is, if you have two sticking, one has good morphology, one has
Exactly.
slightly
Exactly.
poor
Yes.
morphology,
We will.
prefer the good one.
But I think even with that, it's well established that in
It
that
is
case,
well established.
morphology would be moot.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously you would like a better groom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is just that
Exactly.
but
It's
it
just
is
like
just
that.
that at least human spermatozoa are highly variable in nature. If you look at the morphology, they're highly varied. So at times what happens is even though there are receptors which are working out fine on the membrane, but if you look at the morphology as such, they won't be like they don't fall into the normal category. So probably
Exactly.
when multiple sperms are selected by the adherence quality, I think it's always better to have the better quality sperm, better looking sperms for injection, conventional XC. So basically, coming down to the point, like there are two things. First is this will be a selection of the sperms based on the adherence quality. Then second will be the regular XC. Having said that,
Exactly.
I have one question for Sandeep sir. Sir, we have seen a lot of studies earlier which says that PXC showed a lot of inconsistent results. And so what factors that would have contributed for this variability?
Inconsistency of results in IVF is actually a bane for all of us because there are so many factors which come in,
A lot of
So
contributing factors there,
lot
I
of
see.
a lot of factors which actually come in because the different medias are being used by different centers. We at least try to standardize it by use. We never change the media despite having some supply issues in between. In fact, one of the times because this study was, I mean, we knew that we are going to publish it at a later date. So we never changed the media. That was one thing that we actually did. There are so many small things, we try to eliminate it in our inclusion exclusion criteria. For example, a normo-responsive lady will give better oocytes than a PCO patient or a one which is endometriosis patient. So there are so many, I mean, I'm just talking about one of them. So there are so many other factors, a latent diabetes might show poorer result as compared to a normal patient. So since it's a latent diabetic or latent the sperm collected from a latent diabetic man also might show poorer fertilization. There are so many things which come in, and as you go on to the, let's say, the ICSI, and as you go further away from ICSI, like to live birth rate, the factors which add in is tremendous. There are obstetric factors which come in. There is quality of care given during obstetrics. So it is somewhere as embryologist or as reproductive medicine specialist, from the point of action to the result that we want, we should define that journey to a very specific area. I mean, that is why we thought, we'll look at blastulation and adjust it according to our clinical condition. That is, where we were doing both day 3 and day 5 transfers. So we would adjust it accordingly. And then that is how we chose blastulation rate as a primary outcome and put the rest as secondary outcome.
Yes, sir. Just a follow-up question for that. I mean, since this is the first journal club, since you are into editorial board of journals and reviewer, you are already very, very busy reviewer. I know that. So just for the sake of the younger audience, like, sir, how do you define a well-defined population of a study? Like, how do you express it? Like, what are the criteria?
Okay, I mean, there is a lot of things that I'll go on as I'll slightly defocus and take this question. I'll go in terms of how do you want to do a study? I'll answer that, wherein your question will be answered, along the way. So the most important thing is, I guess, when one starts on a study, one should know what is your start point and what is your end point.
Endpoint.
So when these two are defined, then you decide, depending, I mean, of course, when you choose these two things also, it must be feasible in your place of work. So, if like center A, which is not doing PGTA, might not be able to do a study on PGTA. So you must see what your center actually does maximum of. So if
The
there's a
feasibility.
preponderance of PCO patients, then it would be prudent to do, let's say, a study and you want to do PIXI. So you might want to do a study saying, PIXI and PCO. Is it helpful doing PIXI in PCO patients? I mean, I know they're not related, but I'm just giving examples. So
Yeah.
that is number one. And how to include the study? I mean, what are the inclusion criteria? Your inclusion criteria should be quite strict, in the sense you should try to include only those people into the study who will will give the outcome that you desire. So there is no point doing PIXI in a patient of very low reserve, because you might not get blastulation rate. So if you have, let's say, if you want to do PIXI and see adjusted blastulation rate in a poor ovarian case, half your studies might drop out. So your inclusion criteria should be broad enough to include the maximum number. The exclusion criteria, now I'll give you, I mean, as a reviewer, I get a lot of articles, inclusion criteria will say patients between the age of, let's say, 25 to 35. And they'll say exclusion criteria, patient less than 25 and more than 35. Now, the exclusion criteria should be a subset of the inclusion criteria. That is the most important thing to understand.
Right.
So, from the inclusion criteria, you have to apply the exclusion criteria and remove those studies. So, and that is how you define the population. So, you first go defocus, take a broader spectrum, which will give you adequate sample to give significance to your study, and then remove the things which might have an adverse effect or which might drop out from your study. So if you see, we have taken, I mean, studies, all age group, but we have excluded patients with a low AMH, because we know that might not reach the primary outcome also. So
Yeah.
that is how you choose a population for a study.
Right, sir. Right. Wonderful. Nancy, would you like to ask any questions?
I have a question for Dr. Ananta. There is something written in the study that DFI is not included, and this is already mentioned that this is a limitation, one of the limitations. I just want to ask, would incorporating DFI have been provided any sort of insight or significantly impacted the study if we would have incorporated the DFI, and how it is going to impact it?
This question is towards me.
Yes.
Okay. So we know that the PIXI is mainly designed to see the physiological aspect of the sperm. So if we calculate back, if the physiological aspect of sperm is good, then must be the DNA, there is no fragmentation or less fragmentation in the DNA. So in this study, if we add this DFI thing, so we will see a significant result in the DFI. In the PIXI group, we will see a very low DFI. In conventional ICSI, when we select a sperm based on morphology, we don't exactly know how the physiology is or how the DNA is. There is no way we can know this. The DNA fragmentation of the sperm, we are choosing right before the ICSI.
Okay,
So
I'll
I
just,
think it would.
yeah, Anand, after you finish.
Yes, sir, please, sir.
So, I mean, what we are looking at is the quality of DNA. So one of the things which actually physiological ICSI determines is also the DNA Q, as they call it nowadays, or the DNA integrity. So if you, we didn't include DFI because, it's a test which costs money to the patient and not all are affordable at times. So that is the reason why we didn't, and when we actually studied the sample size, we only, I think, found 30% of the population, study population, who had got DFI done. So we didn't actually take it as a criteria for inclusion. But all said and done, see, I mean, the primary reason why PIXI is used is to assess the sperm maturity. We know that the cumulus complex has hyaluronic acid to which actually the sperm goes to, I mean, binds, and that is how the acrosome is activated. So only the mature sperms can actually bind. So ideally, when PIXI was designed rather, it was meant to study the maturity of sperm, which sperms have the ability to bind to HA. That was the main criteria. And that is the same criteria which in a different way, which has come in as also sperm's law. So once an alternate thing as the many, I mean, I think the HA binding capacity, the first paper I think had come out in 1992. Pixie dish came somewhere in the early 2000s. I mean, at least the concept of Pixie came there. The dishes became commercial possibly in the first decade of this century. And as they realized, I mean, as more and more studies came out, they realized that the sperms which stick onto the dot actually have a slightly lesser DFI as compared to the ones who don't stick. So the integrity of DNA might also help in actually sperm selection, but indirectly they have found out that the ones which actually stick on have a better integrity as compared to the ones who don't stick.
So
Sir, I think before this, it was a HBA assay of sperm. We used to do a HBA assay. It was there.
HBA select.
Hyaluronan binding assay. Exactly.
Yeah, that was there.
Okay, there's a question in the chat. Can there be a difference in sperm techniques considering you have used swim up and density gradient? Does that affect the outcome? As I believe DFI wasn't done. It's a question asked from the audience. Nishad has asked this question. Ananda, it's directed to you. Please answer.
Yes. If we do density gradient, if centrifugation is added, so there will be some issue with the DFI, because we know that centrifugation actually increased the DFI in the fragmentation of the DNA. So it's obviously what we do basically after density gradient. This whole study was done only density gradient and then swim up. It is not density gradient or swim up. It is density gradient we have done, and then we have done a swim up on the pellet.
So
yeah, just extend what Ananda said. So basically, it's been age-old practice that
Exactly.
Density gradient followed by swim up to reduce the DFI, at least in the initial days. Still, people even today practicing it, it has become a very gold standard technique. And the point here is, so the moment you are under controllable limits, like say 300G or 200G, whatever you're using, the centrifugal force. So if it is under a limit, I think it will not induce any of higher DFI as such, because this is basically based on swim down, because the colloidal particles which are there, it will help. There will be friction, of course, but it will not induce a DFI as such when it is under limit. Second thing is, and the sperm which yields in the swim up will have a better quality as such. A lot of papers are there that when DGC is done and swim up is done, the DFI comes down gradually. On top of that, here peaks has been done. So that's altogether, like as Sandeep sir said, it's an indirect correlation where a sperm is binding to a hyaluronan dot. It indirectly says that the DFL levels in the sperm will be lesser.
I think I would also like to add one point, because there are a lot of young students also over here. While like Ananda said, the DFI increases with using a density gradient method. The DFI increases in comparison to swim up. It's never more than the raw semen sample. That's something that people always get confused, that when you're using density gradient, the DFI will go higher. It won't go higher. It will reduce from the raw semen sample. Just that if you don't use centrifugation, it will be a little more improved.
Yeah. And so one question for Sandeep sir. Sir, in this paper, multiple times it has been used adjusted rates, adjusted blast duration rates. Could you please emphasize on that? Because
Yeah, I mean, I think I answered that with Pratik's initial thing. Adjusted blastulation, why we use it because it was a more practical way of calculating the blastulation rate, because we were a center which was doing both day 3
and
transfers
day-
as well as day 5 transfers. And depending on, the response that we got, sometimes, after injection, you might find the fertilization rate weren't good. And or the cleavage rate isn't good, or the embryos are not good on day 3. So we would take a call along with the patient and them. I mean, we used to have a common session, and we used to offer them, either a transfer or a freezing protocol on day 3. So how will you adjust this drop of numbers for blastulations calculation? So that is why we use two different formulae. Number one is the cleavage rate, wherein only good cleavage embryos are grade 1 and grade 2 are considered. And from the denominator of the blastulation rate, we have removed the ones which were taken out on either by means of transfer or freezing, so that it gives us a more realistic blastulation rate. Hence, we use the word adjusted,
Adjusted,
because it
yes.
is not as per the Vienna consensus. We have differed from it.
Right, sir.
Okay.
Because of that, it has to be the very word has been used. This is like when you're writing a research article, when you send it for publication, the manuscript is for publication. So these are the things which reviewer looks into. So having said that, I think Nancy, Pratik, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Ask
So
something.
in the statistics, there's a question that I have when I was looking at the article. So we have mentioned that there are miscarriage rates which have been reduced with PIXI. Was there a differentiation done to see if the miscarriage rates were lower with fresh embryo transfer or frozen embryo transfers, or was it
But
just
the
combined?
numbers, unfortunately, were too low. When we actually divided that, we didn't actually sit down to do a slightly deeper differentiation. Possibly if the numbers were high, our numbers are something like 100.
Yeah.
So, when you have a miscarriage, it's going to be even less, So hence we didn't really find it necessary. We only thought a gross miscarriage rate would be good enough.
Okay. Nancy, you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to ask Dr. Sandeep. Sir, when we were talking about the DFI, you mentioned sperm slow. For the younger audience, I just want to I want you to just shed some light on both the platforms we have, the advantages and advantages of both the platforms, Pixie and the sperm slow.
I'll hand over the question to Ananda, because he will be in a better position. Even though I can answer it, let him speak.
Okay, so the difference is not so much. So in sperm flow, there is an interface of sperm containing media containing sperm and the sperm flow media. There is an interface. So the sperm will stick to the interface and it will not move further. The movement, the sperm which will enter the sperm flow media will start reducing the movement. So the less movement is the good sperm. The lesser the movement, the better the sperm is in the sperm flow media. In some cases we have seen if the movement of the sperm is actually very slow, so the differentiation is difficult. But in Pixie, what we see the sperm is sticking to the bottom of the dish, and the tail will propel. So it is my personal choice is Pixie. So we can identify not with the movement, but with sticking. The adhesion is the point there.
Okay,
So-
I'll put it in simple terms. In sperm slow, the loser, the slowest one wins actually. And the faster one actually wins. So it's a reverse. I mean, it's actually that media is constituted with hyaluronic acid along with certain things which retard the movement. So the sperms starts getting heavier as it with time. So it starts reducing in speed. So you eliminate the faster ones, let them go away, keep the slow ones. We prefer the tortoise here.
Very well said.
So can I interpret?
Yeah.
Of
Wait.
course.
So regarding that, sorry, I don't know, my voice is echoing some.
No, it's perfect. So please go ahead.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay. So you are selecting sperm which are stick to petri dish in Pixie,
Correct.
correct? Huh? So is it any way of choosing sperm on the when sperm is sticking to dish, the tail movement is you
Very
selecting
rapid.
the sperm tail movement, how fast is beating the sperm? You got it, my point?
I know. I
Movement of
got the
tail.
point.
Yeah, Ved sir,
Got the point.
so Ved sir is saying that the moment you see the sperm adhering to the drop, the beating of the tail is very rapid. So
Yes.
what could be the reasons for that, and how to aspirate those sperms?
So I generally take from the. I don't try to scoop it out. I generally try to lose the sperm and fast suction. I take it inside the injecting pipette.
The gentle suction, you'll be aspirating them without causing
Yeah,
much
you can
damage.
take the head in first and
Exactly,
then put into the second
exactly.
drop into the PVP.
Yes,
What
yes.
sperm flow also gives an advantage is, you don't require to transfer the sperms. It actually saves time too.
The good thing of the sperm flow is there is no PVPU. So the entire thing is natural.
Yeah,
So
right.
there is no PVPU. That is the main good thing.
So it's actually cheaper than when you compares, it becomes
Exactly.
cheaper
It's also cheaper. It's
and
also
it saves time.
Another advantage could be the moment we use PVP, which is commercial available 7% or 10%. The moment at a time when we go for injection, there is a tendency of depositing those PVP inside the cytoplasm. So the oocyte has to invest a lot of energy to extrude that. But whatever vesicle-based transportation has to be, the oocyte has to invest. At least here, since it is biodegradable and which is very much evident with the Kimless and oocyte. So I think it is safer way of doing it is what I feel, but the results are yet to say.
Okay, so going forward with the questions, there's one question that I have, that since the study was done using this technique, if we look at the HFEA, they have a division of add-ons where they have completely almost every add-on in their book is useless. So how
Except
do you?
possibly the transport media where they're given amber light, I guess.
Yeah, but then even amber and red light, they're both considered to be useless.
Yeah.
Red is something which is useless, but it can also cause harm.
Correct.
So
Amber is something which can be used with counseling.
yeah, which can be used with counseling. It won't give you any con to the patient, but it still won't give you a favorable outcome. So with that in mind, how do you recommend using Pixie to the patient, or do you not recommend it at all? You just use Pixie behind the scene.
Shall I take this on, or is Pananda?
Anyone can take it. So you can take it.
So let's say if it's a case of repeated implantation failure, a case of previous fertilization failure, or a previous blast failure. So I mean that is the case where we would use. Another new indication which is coming up and which is doing a lot of rounds and nowadays in the literature is to use Pixie for older women, not for older men, but for older women. And they have shown better results, better blastulation rate when it comes to sperms selected by Pixie in older women have a better tendency. Or if it's a recurrent implantation failure, this, I mean, I think one area where there is consistency is definitely it reduces the miscarriage rate. So I think these are the select population that I would advise this procedure to.
So small follow-up question here. I think, with repeated implantation failure, I think, a lot of studies are there and that has been addressed a lot of times. But with women with like elder age, how does it make difference? Like say, we're just using
These
a sperm cell.
Sanket, these are something which have been addressed, put down in literature. How they have is possibly not explained, or at least I am not aware of it. I mean, one can't be all knowing. So at least I try to read through the lines when it comes to this, but unfortunately, I couldn't find a very logical answer to it. But this is a finding which they have found in more than one study. So possibly there's a reason. Science will decipher it as time
Right.
flows by.
Right.
Okay, so just to add to it, you have mentioned that using PIXI in cases which have recurrent implantation failure. In this study, was there a differentiation done for patients who have had recurrent implantation failure, or were these first-time
Not really,
cases?
not really. We didn't do it.
So
We just
that
did
that
normal
brings me to the original question: how did you offer it to the patient? Or was the counseling done?
See, most of the, unfortunately, I mean, you ask any clinician, they will always tell the same thing. But we used to get, unfortunately, the poor group, in the sense, poor in terms of reserve or poor in terms of history. So I'm pretty sure all the clinicians tell this. Yeah, I mean, so that is why it was retrospective. So I guess it's very difficult for us to actually do a prospective study when money is involved. That is one of
Right.
the beginnings of being in private practice. When I was possibly in a government setup, it was much easier because, you could easily randomize, you could easily blind, or at least part of the study could be blinded. But when it comes to this and there is a specific money amount to be paid, then it becomes a very difficult thing in doing a prospective study when it comes to this. So I had the opportunity of actually doing a prospective study using 4 arms, one being max, one being PIXI, one being alternate ejaculation.
That
Sorry.
was RCT, right, sir? That was an RCT.
It was an RCT. It was an RCT. So what we had to do there is to keep all the procedures at the same cost. Only then,
that is because of
bias
RCT
is
and
reduced. So it's not an easy thing to do in a private, in a commercial setup. So hence we try to generalize it, defocus a little bit, and try to get whatever result we can from a certain procedure.
right.
Okay.
A small follow-up question here, which is related to statistics, sir, again. How does one define the number of study population? Like say, like 100 will be the
Sample size is what you're hinting at?
Right, sir. Right, sir. How are you going to decide? Like,
Okay, there are many ways. I mean, sample size selection is actually a huge topic in itself. There are books written on this. So I'll tell the broad-based points. Number one is if there's a previous study which has done and has got a significant difference. So approximately the same thing needs to be done or lesser can be done. If at all the significance isn't much, but there's a tendency for the difference to appear, then you have to do a sample size which is higher. There are certain factors called the alpha and the beta which needs to be calculated and incorporated to get a sample size. For example, if you're doing an absolutely new study, let's say a study which has not been done earlier, then one of the ways of calculating sample size is by doing a pilot study. Pilot study, give the results to the statistician. He will tell you approximately what is the sample, what is the, it actually measures the effect. Depending on the degree of effect, you actually select the sample size. If the effect degree is high, then the sample size is low. If there is very minimal change between the two procedures, then the sample size would increase. Yeah. Of course, again, and when it comes to population-based studies, the sample size goes up to thousands and lakhs.
Yeah, yes. So because
Okay,
I asked,
sorry.
yeah, one second, Pratik.
Yeah,
so I
yeah,
asked question because a lot of people I've seen nowadays, like they just select some random number. There is a lot of science behind the number game here. So it is done in a very systematic way. So please contact your statistician, give your primary objectives and secondary objectives and your study population. Then they'll boil down to a number where it has to be fitted. So it is not just a random number, picking up some random number. Sir, I've done 300 cycles. Okay, all this will be included for the study. No, it is not the way to do that. Having said that, yeah, Pratik.
Yeah, so with continuing with the point you had made, since it's a retrospective study, what do you think going forward, if somebody wants to do a study on PIXI versus ICSI, what can be improved considering the limitations of this study? What can they include or they change?
Okay, the first thing that you should do is possibly get a sponsor for the study. So
Funding.
make the additional, funding. So make the additional cost of PIXI not being passed on to the patient per se. So you can ask Cooper Surgical to sponsor your study. Okay. And then you can possibly do an RCT on that, or using sibling oocytes, you can actually find out that would be the ideal way to do it. One sibling oocytes one goes in for Pixie, one goes in for ICSI. That would be the best
Yeah.
study possible. But unfortunately, these things require money. So if a sponsor is there, or if the university is granting you, or if you get a grant from, let's say, BIRAC or one of the government organizations, then that's the best way to go ahead.
Perfect. Also, I think we can also mention in this study or in the studies that would come ahead now, how many embryologists were actually doing the ICSI, because there could be a variation if there are multiple embryologists in a single study doing
During
single
that phase of
cases.
study, we had only one senior embryologist and two juniors. So boss is around here, so he's done bulk of the ICSIs. Might be one or two, depending on his gracious mood on that day, he would have given it to his juniors, but I doubt it.
So then, this is my question to Bose. Why choose Pixie? Why not go for, say, microfluidics, which can also reduce DFI, and then you can do a ICSI? It will also reduce the patient cost. So what's your take on that? Why not use any
That's
other
our next
method?
study.
Exactly. So we have
Is it
planned
also
this and
retrospective?
I mean, commercially, it will be retrospective. Very difficult to do prospective.
I think with microfluidics, the cost isn't too much. I mean,
Microfluidics, we have done a lot.
yeah.
I mean, one
I
with
think so. I
the
think
comfort
cost-wise,
study.
Indian market, the
Yeah.
dish we're getting for PXC as well as the chip for the microfluidic device, I think they're almost
It's
same.
pretty much the same. Yeah,
Almost
pretty
same,
much the same.
almost.
Cost is the same. You can actually minimize the effect of bias by, making the cost the same.
Exactly.
The patient. You can sell it off at the same cost to the patient. So the procedure would be the same. So then there is no bias, But then again, the bias comes at clinician level, at the embryologist level. Iska semen is looking at the so all those things should be actually eliminated. So once you have two-arm RCT, no one should change that. That gets in operator bias. So
Also, I think with using microfluidic, then you cannot go for abnormal semen samples. Then you have to stick to normal spermic
normal
samples.
semen.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
otherwise you'll not get the yield. That would be nightmare.
Exactly.
Most of the times when we run for microfluidics or max with severe oligo samples, there will be no yield for ICSI.
There'll be
But
no
the
yield.
smaller one, the smaller microfluidics chamber, we can use a little astheno
750
sample or oligo
microliters.
sample.
Yeah.
Yes,
750 microliters. Yeah, that you can use, but the yield would still be, I think, pretty. And there are only, I think, Zymot probably is the one device that will give you both the chambers available.
Qualis
Exactly.
was there, but I think it is
Yeah.
stopped in the market now.
Yeah.
Only Zymot is available.
Now there are three
Available, I
devices
guess,
available. Yeah.
Channel ones are. There are so many which have actually come into picture, but unfortunately, you need for microfluidics, I think you need at least a minimum standard of motility and number to do microfluidics.
There was a small debate, sir. I think it was in last days. I think I got to know this. There was a debate like swim up, there was swim down, and microfluidics is nothing but swim across. That's all. These are new it has been given. It's nothing much, is what I think Dr. Vijay Kumar Chilla was saying this. Swim up to hai, down to hai. This is nothing but across. Bus. Yeah, this was.
The correct microfluidics is what the chips we get is not the correct microfluidic chips, unfortunately. Microfluidic chips are supposed to be much narrower. This is mainly what we are getting is possibly just a mesh filter, which they sell it off.
The sheep one,
Yeah.
A mesh filter
If you
and
want to
then a
see
gradient
microfluidics, you
separation.
have to come to Hyderabad. You go onto the road and see the traffic and see how the motorcycles go between the cars. That is microfluidics.
Probably I cannot show now. It's blurred. It is that is what Sandeep sir said is the same. That is how it works in microfluidic devices.
Yeah, I believe Nancy had another question related to the study. Nancy, are you here? I think I don't see Nancy.
I think she's away.
Okay. Sanket, do you have a question?
No, I think.
Sorry, I got a call that we have a few questions in chat box too, and all the juniors and delegates attendees want to
that is already discussed.
for them.
The more? Okay.
Yes, there are more.
I don't see them here. Okay.
Yeah, I think
they're
not in the in this.
Someone will have to transfer it from their chat box to our chat box.
Yeah.
So I do also have a question, sir. Now, when I was studying this table, few of my juniors, they asked me, how do you read this table? So I said that I'll ask
Which one? The table 5?
Table 5, yes. So
Okay.
I
So it's
asked Dr. I said that I'd ask Dr. Sandeep. He'll be a better teacher than
Okay.
me.
Nancy, can you share the table on screen
Yes.
so that
Harsh,
they can see?
please share the table. I've already asked him.
No, ma'am,
It's a
sure.
very simple thing. I mean, it is adjusting. It is what is called as regression model. I mean, regression analysis. So you try to homogenize the rest of the factors. So when you see the first line, it is Pixie versus ICSI. So rest of the factors are homogenized, which can be actually, so that is called adjustment. So once Pixie and ICSI are compared, the rest of the things are adjusted, it still shows a statistical significance. So that is why it is important. Let's say wife's age, if you compare the wife's age between the two arms and rest of the things are homogeneous, it doesn't show a difference. That is how it works. This is called, there are regression models. So this, I mean, I won't be able to explain it in terms of statistics. I'm not a statistician. I just know the bare minimum that is required to keep you afloat on statistics. So that is how it works. I hope that answers it, Nancy, in simple words.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Very simplified. Dr. Nidhi, we don't see questions in the chat box that you were mentioning.
I'll get back to you. Huh? Continue.
Nancy, there was some questions,
Nidhi.
but
Yes,
all
sir.
are already answered.
Okay.
So
Most of
I
them
am
are covered,
putting on
Nancy.
question related to our that thing. Okay. We have 16 questions, but these 2 questions are we have to answer. Otherwise, no other questions left.
I think it's the repetitive things
Yeah,
which
yeah.
we already covered. Sir, one thing. What are the statistical methods used in the study and how do they strengthen and weaken the study? Just simplified version of that.
Okay, statistical analysis is not our ball game,
Mhm.
but depending on the nature of study, you know, there are qualitative studies, there are quantitative studies. Ours is a quantitative study, wherein we are dealing with numbers. So quantitative study for significance depends on how many arms you have and what is the level of significance you have. So depending on that, you choose uh, your method of analyzing the entire sample. So the best thing to do is when you design a study at the very upfront, sometimes, you know, you and your, I mean, two of you, that is one clinician, one embryologist decides to do a study. You sit down and see what is the inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, what is the approximate sample you have, and what is the numbers that you can actually harvest, what is the numbers, what is the effect size. All those things you must write it down on a piece of paper, then get the statistician. You have to be clear of your way. Then he will tell you which thing to put in. I mean, it's a people do PhD on statistics. You know, one can't be very good in. Otherwise, one has to be, like for example, my dear friend Mohan Kamath, he is doing MSc in statistics now.
Yes,
So,
I think he's completed, sir.
He is just completed from Edinburgh. So it's a different ball game completely. And not only that, when it comes to qualitative studies, the statistics, the same statistical, I mean, the same parameters can't be applied across the board. It also depends on the sample size. If the sample size is more, then the statistical analysis also will differ. If the sample size is less, the statistical analysis will differ. So, I mean, let them also earn their bread and butter. You know? So
So one more question. One more question. One more follow-up question. At the moment, anybody is sending some research. Sorry. Yeah. So when someone is sending a manuscript or whatever to the statistician, the first and foremost thing is they're going to ask is, can we have a parent article for this? Do you have? So
see, the parent article is generally needed because he doesn't understand what you're doing. So
exactly.
the thing is, you
has to be
must
clear.
get him to your room or explain to him what you want from the study. That is why I said you should know what your starting point is, what your end point is. And you should know why you are doing this and what is the expected effect size. You explain it clearly to him. The rest he will tell you. Generally, a good statistician will tell you what exactly needs to be done. So
Right.
the most important thing is for us to explain to the person. He is not an embryologist or a clinician to actually know, you know, हमने ICSI किया, हमने PICSI किया, हमको difference पता नहीं है. आप बताओ, significant है. He doesn't know what PICSI or ICSI is. You have to tell him why, or at least, you know, make him understand as to what is the difference that you expect from one procedure to the other procedure.
Yes, sir, because this has become a trend. Like unless and until you define your study well, people, statisticians keep asking for parent articles. So it is our responsibility to know the difference and what
Yeah.
exactly we're doing. As you said, starting point, ending point. Then only we can make a very clear paper out of it. And yeah, any more questions, Prateek, Nancy?
Before you all end, I have a small note to add. Actually, unfortunately, I mean, I am in the editorial board of JHRS, that is Journal of Human Reproductive Sciences. I mean, there's a conflict of interest. Mohan Kamath made me write actually that he sent my paper back at least 3 to 4 times before accepting it. No, I mean, that's how it should be. I mean, despite the fact that I'm in the editorial board, I mean, it was peer reviewed, it was reviewed by anyone, and it was blinded to me. So that is number one. So don't be disheartened when the board sends you the paper back. It is meant to improve it. Once it has come in black and white, you can't change it. And publishing
Yes.
an erratum or withdrawing a paper is not taken in good light, you know. So we have Indian journals. I mean, for example, I can speak about JHRS. It's a peer-reviewed journal that, and it has impact factor. It doesn't ask money from anyone. There are a lot of journals which what's it? There's a term, predatory journals,
Creative
which
journals.
you will have to pay them for getting it published. But I think, you know, Indian journals are quite good. One needn't always publish on the international front. And if it is free of cost for the reader, it has more coverage also. So, for example, if you publish in Human Reproduction, and if you want everyone to read it, then you have to pay Human Reproduction to make it free for all. Like, for example, JHRS, if you publish, it is actually free. You can go to the website, pull down any article of your choice and read it. You can't do the same with fertility, sterility, HR, HRU, whatever. I mean, so only certain articles are free. Guidelines most of the times are generally free because the organization itself, you know, pays for it. So publish in peer-reviewed journal, which doesn't charge you anything and which is free of cost for everyone to read. That is the best way of putting your papers across.
Yes, sir. A small note to add here. I had a very bitter experience initially because when I submitted an article, it was coming back to back like for 1 year. So I just recall that incident. And after that, I realized after once I started working as a reviewer for the same journal, I understood how it works. So I have a great respect for this journal and you're doing great work, sir. And having said that, any note to be added from Pratik and Nancy?
Yeah, I think we have almost covered all the questions, and I don't see any more questions in the chat as well. So just keeping that in mind and going forward, one last question to Ananda. Would you recommend Pixie as a technique staple in an IVF lab?
Definitely. Definitely,
You
yes.
you would. All
Yes,
right.
I
And
would.
sir, would you?
Pixie or sperm slow?
Pratik, I'm a believer of accumulation of marginal gains. Okay, so I believe even if it possibly still comes under the amber light, it might improve it by a non-significant thing. You add another small procedure, it will improve it by a non-significant margin. But when all these non-significant margins add up, it actually might be just one beta HCG difference,
Yeah.
which might make a huge difference to
Right.
the. So
Right.
any
Right.
procedure which is there and scientifically valid, I would add it.
Yes.
That's very true. This is exactly what I was looking for, because while HFEA very easily puts all the add-ons in amber and red, we have to understand that with Pixie, we are still trying to choose the best sperm possible. Getting a live birth rate is a long game. It just does not depend on the embryological outcomes. So if we can still choose the best sperm for the egg, I think it's a good enough technique.
Just want to add one more thing. Don't use all the techniques for every patient. Some you have to see the indications. According to that, you just select the technique. It will help. Definitely, it will help you. Just like Dr. Sandeep told us, the marginal gain will help the people to get beta CG positive.
So can I have a
Perfect.
closing statement from all our
Yes, Nidhi.
experts and moderators So it would be lovely to end the journal here with a nice statement from everybody. Sir, Sandeep sir, if you could start a take-home
I
message.
mean, I think it's a wonderful initiative, and I wish iHERA the very best for all this thing. I mean, all you could also include. I mean, if you guys are keen, we could include lectures on research methodology. We
Yeah,
could get
definitely.
people on board. There,
Yeah.
I mean, you should choose your articles. Like, this time you chose a retrospective study. We could choose an RCT, or we could choose a prospective. Then we could choose a meta-analysis, and go the smaller ones. I mean, all studies are important. Be it a
Yes.
case study, be it a cohort study, everything is important. It's not only RCTs which are important. Every study is important, and every level of study should be discussed. Is what I feel. So just don't discuss bigger studies, bigger names. Include smaller studies, smaller names, smaller numbers, and break down the paper into smaller parts and discuss. That's how it goes ahead.
No, sir. Rightly said by you. I think we even thought of including the case studies in this, not just reviews and meta-analysis. Also, that is very important. Any important case study that has been put up there, I think we are ready to discuss even that, sir.
Right.
Perfect.
Host sir, any closing statement from your side?
I just want to thank all of you. Awesome people, awesome questions. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
That's
And
short and sweet.
Pradeep sir, if sir is there.
Yeah, Pratik is there.
Yeah. I think I've already made my closing statement.
Thank you for the wonderful JC discussion by our experts, and thank you Sanket sir and Nancy. And I'm very sure it has been really full of lots of experiences which we got to share at this platform. Even if it was we start with a single pixie, but it went beyond our discussion. And thank you to all of the experts here. And I request Ved sir to please give a thanking note. Charbhat sir, I welcome Charbhat sir. He's there, sir.
Yes,
Yeah,
Charul, yeah.
special thanks to Sandeep sir, because not just covering the paper as such, but he also touched the statistics part, how it has been done, city population,
So,
the cohort studies, everything. Thank you so much, sir, for that.
good
Because I
evening,
think
and,
yes, sir.
I really like to thank our own Dr. Ved to have these new ideas under iHERA, and the team, Sanket, Nidhi, Nancy. All this credit goes to all this young generation. They are planning the event and doing it very well. And on top of it, people like Dr. Sandeep associate with this, so it becomes more knowledgeable platform for everyone. So, on behalf of iHERA, I would like to thank all of you to be part of this initiative, and I hope we will have such a kind of more and more webinars and such kind of activities, General Club in future also. And I think this is a good platform for junior embryologists or junior people to come across and put their queries, because many times it happens that on a big platform they are reluctant, there is hesitation to ask question, but here just name come, no picture, nothing is there, so they can very well ask the questions and it can be very well answered. So thank you iHERA, and thank you everyone for joining this journal club.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and also congratulations to Harsh for your wonderful presentation.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you to
good job,
thank
Harsh.
you to all.
Keep
And
on
as we
presenting.
say, कि picture abhi baki hai mere dost. This is the first general club which we started, and we will continue to bring you more and more in-depth knowledge and in-depth topics. And thank you to all. And I
We wanted
request
to
support
know-
me to do this offline.
We wanted to
Picture
keep
le le.
it 30 minutes to 40 minutes. Now it's already more than 1
Nancy
hour.
is left. Please let Nancy also speak.
Yes,
Otherwise,
Nancy.
I
Sanket
want to
will
say
scold you.
something because we are going to have a follow-up discussion in the embryo chat group. If anyone is left with any sort of query or question, we can take the follow-up questions in embryo chat group for an hour.
Someone has to make me the member also.
Yes, sir.
We will open the chat group till 10 o'clock
Yes.
in the night today.
Yes, we will open
Sir,
it.
the amount of messages these young people are putting in, like, oh my God, like continuously, if you open the chat for, this is not open all the days, it's only open for a few days. Like, we inform them, tomorrow the chat will be open for discussion. So from 6 to 10, continuously you'll be getting messages like this question, that, like you
Anything.
must experience
I
it, sir.
hope they have stopped sharing now.
Yeah, can we take us offline, please? Thank you so much.
Support team.
Yes,